Hi, today I'm going to show you how I achieved this using Ranger Black and Silver, Isopropyl Alcohol, a lens blower on Yupo paper. Firstly, if you've never been to my YouTube channel before, then welcome. I'm here to share my knowledge on alcohol inks as much as I can. I do a lot more advanced videos and some beginner videos as well. This video is more for a beginner, and as you can see, I've started putting ink on the Yupo paper. I usually start with the alcohol first, just a drop, and then add the ink right into it. The reason I do that is because it avoids getting the little staining circle. So where you initially drop straight ink onto Yupo paper, depending on how dark the color is, sometimes you can get a dot, a ring around where the ink stains the paper. So to avoid that, I try to start with a little bit of alcohol first. Sometimes it's not ideal depending on your circumstances, but in this circumstance for this piece, it worked perfectly to add the alcohol first and then the ink right into it. And I am using a lens blower. You can find these on Amazon and probably many other places too, but I got mine from Amazon. And I put down a base of Ranger Black ink, a nice strip across the middle, as you can see, and spread it out with some of the alcohol. Now I'm adding some of the Ranger Silver. The silver mixatives tend to be a little bit thicker than the regular inks, and they're a little bit harder to work with because they don't separate the same way. So they do take a little bit of practice to work with them. And for now, I've added it in at this point because I want it to mix with the black a little bit. And I really want it to kind of spread as much as it possibly can. Like I said, it's difficult. They don't spread quite as easily. And I still have quite a bit of work that I want to do on this. So I know that I'm not going to get too many big clumps of silver in there. It's going to mix nicely with the black because the black will move as well as the silver. Even though it seems to have dried, alcohol ink always reactivates, which is nice in sometimes and then not so nice in other times. When you have a bit that you love and you have to rework another area of your piece, and all of a sudden the bit you love has disappeared. So there's a love-hate relationship with that, I think, for a lot of us. I love this black ink by Ranger because it splits into so many beautiful colors. I will share with you at the end a close-up of the image so you can see exactly all the colors that come through, but even now you can see that there's a nice gray, which is usual for when you thin out black, but there's also a blue undertone and even a bit of a pinky purple undertone as well. Like I said, I will do a close-up of that at the end when the painting is finished. So right now I'm trying to spread out the black ink to get all those colors coming through, and I keep reworking some areas, and where it's thickest with black, I'm going in and dropping a blob of alcohol to get it moving to split that up. I can always add more intensity of black ink afterwards, but my initial layer with something like this is to spread it out as much as possible and get all those beautiful colors and textures and patterns happening that seem to just happen beautifully with the inks. So that's why I'm trying to spread that out, break up some of the silver blobs that I put on there as well. So sometimes I'll push with the air blower, the lens blower, the air outwards towards the edge of the paper, and then sometimes I'll push it back in. That's when you get the nice wispy edges. So when you first push it out towards the edge, you get the lines as you can see there. Then I put a drop of alcohol just behind the ink and pushed it back in, and it softens the line. So I've decided to speed the video up just a little bit, just to save a little bit of time, but I'm basically doing exactly the same thing as what you saw just a few minutes ago. I keep going in, breaking up the ink, breaking up the really heavy texture areas. I'm trying to get it nice and thin along the edges. So I push the ink out with the lens blower from the center to the edge, and then push it back in to get the wispy edges. And I put the alcohol sometimes directly onto the ink, but then sometimes onto the white of the paper just beside the ink, and then push it into the ink, because then you get the softer edges. You can see on the top there, I decided to go in with paper towel and alcohol just to soften the edges. You can also do this with a cotton bud, or depending where you live, a Q-tip. And I just put the alcohol directly onto the Q-tip. I've decided to go in and make a few circles, because who doesn't love circles, and break up some of the design that way as well. And I will work on top of that a little bit more as well. But I do like to go back and forth, adding texture, whether it's sometimes with the spray bottle or with the paper towel, or like you saw with the cotton bud as well. So I'm still working this. I could say that it's finished, but I want to keep working it. I feel like there's a little bit more I want to do to those edges to soften them. So I'm going in with some alcohol right on the edge, either right on the ink to push it, to drag it out a little bit further, or right beside it to then soften the edge and blow back into the middle as well. So I don't know about you, but I start to get a little bit of arm ache in my forearm from these blowers, lens blowers, but I feel like I have a little bit more control with one of these. There's definitely a time and place for a hairdryer on a cool setting, or also the hairbrush blower dryer thing. I'm not sure what the actual name of those things are, and I should know really, because I used to be a hairdresser, but anywho, those work really nicely as well. And there's lots of tips and other videos on YouTube where people are using those that you can kind of see for yourself what might be best for you. So I'm just going around spreading some of that ink out a little bit more. You can see some lighter blues coming through. There's even a hint of pink, pinky, like a salmon-y pink in there as well, which is really nice. And I just keep going till I feel like it's even and but interesting at the same time. Breaking up still some of the larger black areas, or areas where there's a little too much solid of a color. I just like to break it up just a little bit. And this is where you get all these interesting blooms and lines and texture that comes in between the colors, is by keep adding the alcohol and working the ink. Even though it seems to have dried, it's always reworkable, which I actually really like about it. And it took me a long time to get used to that, but it is actually something that I love about it right now. Some people argue differently, but for me, it's the beauty of the inks. And once you kind of learn how to use them, the results are endless. So I've decided to go back in with some silver on top just to get a few more veins of it. So I'm going to go back and forth with the silver and the black at the same time, and some isopropyl alcohol. Using my lens blower still, I'm going to push it around and hope to get just a few more sparkly bits of silver coming through on there as well. Sometimes I'll add them right on top of each other with the two colors and the alcohol as well, and you just get a nice mix that happens between the two at the same time. Because there is a point where you can overwork it. So there's, with any medium though, I find in art, because I've worked with quite a few other mediums as well, that part of the challenge is knowing when to stop, knowing if you need to continue. That is part of the challenge. But yeah, I've speeded up just again, just a little bit faster just to get through this. It's the same idea, pushing the ink. I just wanted a little bit more contrast. That's why I'm adding a little bit more black in there now. I said in the beginning how I like to spread it all out first, get all my cool colors coming through, and then just to add that contrast, I go back in with that same color again to build up the almost layers, but they're not really layers. They kind of still mix with what's underneath, which is nice. A little tip there for you, I used the paper towel. I thought I put down a little too much black, so I just dabbed a little bit off so that it didn't go too far and take over. And here is the close-up, so you can see all the texture, you can see all the colors. There's that salmon color in there, there's a light blue, there's a dark blue, there's a gray, there's a kind of a purpley tone. I love the Ranger Black. I think it's amazing. If you haven't tried it, definitely put it on your list to get with your next order. I definitely recommend it. And there you go. There is my whimsical piece for today. Just using, well, I guess it was officially two colors with the silver, but the black would still have a really good impact all on its own if you don't have the silver. So give it a go. I'd love to hear how yours turned out. And if you have any comments or questions, pop those in the box below. And I try to release videos every Friday, so I'll see you next week.